Hey, Jake Newton here again for the second video of our instructional series as part of our collective active assailant workshop. In this video, we're going to talk about building out your active assailant protocol. And as you recall in the last video, we talked a little bit about the connection between workplace violence and active assailant and how we prevent and respond and recover for those different things, looking at it from more of a larger perspective on the entire spectrum of violence. Well, in this video, we're going to focus specifically on that active assailant piece and having a plan and a guideline for preparing for that issue specifically. What does this look like? Well, the first thing I want to talk about as a variable are the layers of preparedness. And there's three of them. One, you have the organizational governance or the guide that you want to provide as an entire organization. What are we doing to plan holistically for this? There's the site level to this, where individual sites are going to have certain considerations that they need to take care of and be mindful of. And then there's the third layer of this, which is the individual and responding individually to maintain safety and security if something like this should occur. So there's different layers of this, and our guidelines and our protocols can really facilitate planning out that entire process. So at the corporate level or the organizational level, there's a couple different things that we need to identify and insert into our program or your protocol that you're building out. And it's who's going to be responsible for this program. You might have a crisis management team in place. Maybe you're a smaller organization and this is going to fall upon a couple individuals. But regardless, you want to be able to identify who's going to be responsible for what and how is this from a program perspective going to be managed. So who's going to follow through, in other words, on all of the different components of effort that are going to be put into this protocol, which we'll talk about more in a minute. On that note, I'm not going to get into every detail of what's in the protocol. If you don't already have it, get our active assailant planning guide. It walks you through all of the different components. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like from a process perspective. How do we get this guidance in there and then planned out as an organization? So first, like I was saying, we need to identify who's going to be responsible for this and what role do they have. Putting that guidance in the protocol is going to help facilitate some of this longevity within the program, because now we understand and have a formalization to what that's going to look like over the course of time, maintaining this effort over the course of time. So who's going to lead it? What team is going to be involved? And what does that look like? And as you might imagine, the roles within the process are going to be largely representative of the role that you have within the organization. Security is probably going to handle physical security components, maybe working with first responders and developing those relationships. HR might be more behind the training aspects of this and maybe some of the employee notifications or something like that with programmatic information. Maybe you have communications people that are going to be working with media and all of these different things, or maybe to some degree the employee communications as well. But identifying what that looks like and who's going to be doing what. A very excellent facilitator for what that looks like is the ASIS standard that we've mentioned several times. So use that as a wonderful benchmark. But that's a big, big piece. So as we start developing the protocol and you get these different components in there, mass notifications, what our training requirements are, developing relationships with first responders, what the response is going to look like, how we recover from this. That first layer of this should be the overarching guidance for the organization, and create that guidance in a way that it helps individual sites prioritize what they need to use and implement or have in place at their individual sites. Here's an example of what I mean. Let's take mass notifications as one component of this. Perhaps you have some sort of technological means, software that is going to push out information to email or text messaging, whatever that might be. Maybe some sites have a public address system. Maybe some sites have a strobe system that lights up. Maybe some sites have actual active shooter detection capabilities, and that can push out communication. whatever that looks like, well, the corporate governance or the corporate protocol, the organizational protocol will want to outline, here's all of the existing capabilities. Now, as a site in your individual guidance for your location specifically, you need to identify what that's going to look like as what's available for your specific site. If it's a manufacturing facility, maybe phones aren't going to be on everybody because of a safety issue, so we might have to rely on other means, but it's going through that planning process and identifying at a specific site what that looks like. And we're doing that for every single consideration outlined within the plan. Another big component of this is perhaps you have a crisis management plan in place, going back up to the organizational level of this. Take this protocol and of course have it apply and be symbiotic with your crisis management plan. This doesn't have to be separate and apart, although your crisis management plan is probably going to be holistic in nature and all hazards approach, which is great. We still want to have this protocol address all of those considerations that are specific to this issue that may not be the same as, for example, responding to a natural disaster. So maybe the infrastructure is the same, maybe use the incident command system by Department of Homeland Security. Maybe it's a little bit different. Whatever that looks like, you want to have all of that work together and be part of the same sheet of music. So you're not having a bunch of different processes for overarching guidance and governance from the organization. The next level down, we get into the site component. I've talked about that already. And then the last layer of this is, of course, the individual component. Responding as individuals, making sure that they're trained. We talked about in the last video, looking at the spectrum of violence as part of the training, but recognizing that individuals need to respond, get themselves to safety, following that protocol that is run, hide, fight, or the guidance that you use for your organization. And then, ensuring, again, back from the organizational perspective, that each layer of this is taken care of from a response and recovery aspect. So individuals are going to respond, but then the organizational perspective is, now what are we employing to make sure we're managing that incident real time, getting accountability of our folks, taking care of the medical issues, liaising with first responders. And then the last big piece, of course, is recovery. As an organization, are we taking care of the considerations to get back to business as usual? Are we recovering from this from an operations standpoint, business continuity? And if we have a facility that's entirely shut down, do we have a way to get back on status with something else that might be in place? So we're looking at all of these considerations, taking accountability of our people and looking at that from a perspective of readiness, response, and recovery. So we have that guidance from the organization to kind of summarize all of this. We tailor it to the individual sites. And then that last level is making sure that individuals are prepared so that as part of the collective organizational response strategy, individuals know how to keep themselves safe as well for an active assailant incident. The last thing that I want to share about this is partner with your first responders and your local law enforcement and your emergency medical folks and the different emergency management liaisons that are available. They're going to have a lot of different resources or at least guidance that they can provide for this. And when we start talking about staging capabilities or what kind of information they might want in their emergency kits. And again, all of this you're going to see in that active assailant protocol guide I mentioned, but partner with them to see what's going to be useful for them rather than just building things and then making it available without having that discussion. It's going to be so much more effective. And what is more, bring them on site, walk them through your facilities, get them familiar with everything, and allow them to have that familiarity with your organization. One, it's going to be helpful in some considerations for prevention, but if something were to happen, they've already got that familiarity with your locale. So thanks for watching this, but ultimately build out that protocol, reach out to us if you have any questions. And in the meantime, take care. Thanks.